You may think you know how SBA loans work, but do you really? How do you get approved for an SBA loan? Is an SBA loan the right type of funding for the business that you're looking to start? Now, this excerpt is a clip from our most viewed podcast episode, which has over 70,000 views now. And in this episode, I talk with Glen of Huntington Bank. Literally all he does every day, all day, is help his clients get SBA loans. Huntington Bank is the number one SBA lender in the country. They've literally, in 2023, have already given over $1.3 billion in SBA loans. So we'll talk about how SBA loans work, how to get approved for SBA loans, and the specific uses and businesses that can even get SBA loans. We'll also talk about how you can finance real estate with SBA loans and how that process works. If you are in need of an SBA loan and want to get in contact with Glen, his information is below. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, everyone. I'm here with Glen, and we are going to talk about SBA loans. I got the king of SBA loans here. So this is going to be an exciting episode. Glen, welcome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I asked a friend who does a lot of podcasts for some advice, and he said just don't be boring was his advice. So I'm going to try to make SBA lending as fun as possible. So I appreciate you having me, and I like that king title. I'll wear that, even though it's probably not true, but I like it.
That's awesome. But SBA loans are an important topic. I mean, we're in a time right now where a lot of people are looking to buy businesses, get into owning businesses. And at the end of the day, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but like one of the main reasons why businesses fail is a lack of funding, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and SBA loans, obviously been around for a while. The agency itself started in the 50s, so not a new kind of program per se, but one that I think was kind of thrust into the limelight during COVID because of the PPP program. So a lot of businesses who had never kind of engaged with the SBA in the past were able to kind of take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, and it kind of created a little bit of just familiarity with kind of the organization and what it did, and its main purpose, which is to help businesses either start, grow, expand. And so, yeah, absolutely. The result of that was that you have a lot of people now looking for funding, whether it's startup, and the kind of the acronym SBA is familiar now, right? Maybe they don't know the details of the program, but I think they're more kind of interested in kind of finding out more details. And so it's been a great space to be in. I feel kind of lucky to kind of be part of such a great kind of program designed to help with small business lending. So it's been an exciting time in the world of SBA.
And so I know you said that you work in the what is it, 7A program, right? So can you explain what is the SBA 7A program?
Yeah, so the SBA 7A program, the reason why I like it so much is, like we just discussed, it can be used for a lot of different things. So like franchise startup, purchasing commercial real estate, expansion, just think about any number of reasons to expand to a second location, partner buyouts, debt refinance, financing equipment. So typically when it's non-real estate related, it's a 10-year term. When it's real estate related, it's a 25-year term, fully amortized. So there's no balloon payments. It is a 25-year straight term with a 3-year prepay. So that's pretty good too, because if year 5 you want to refinance or if you want to kind of do anything different, you can pay it off at no penalty. So that's what's great about the 7A. It's a really flexible loan program. And then the terms, right? So 10-year terms. So think about debt refinance. So I'm actually working on a deal right now. In 2020, this customer kind of took out a high interest rate kind of loan that was supposed to be paid back in I think it was like 4 years, and the interest rate's like 25%. But they had to do it during COVID. They panicked, right? They just needed some money, and so we're going to be able. I think they said their monthly payment is like $26,000 a month. So essentially, we're taking this 4-year note at 25% and stretching out over 10 years at 6%. And it completely changes the monthly cash flow for the business. It's a huge no-brainer. So it's a great deal for them. It gets them out of this high interest rate loan. It stretches the payment out. And on our 10-year terms, there's no prepayment penalty. So they can aggressively pay that thing down in a year if they want to, and not have any penalty. So a great program for debt refinance as well.
So you're a senior SBA development officer, right? So you do all SBA. Like that's all that you do every day is SBA loans, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And then you got Huntington Bank, who recently took their SBA loan program national, meaning that they don't just do them in their footprint anymore. Like if you guys are in one state, you only do it there, you'll do it national. And so I was looking at your post that you did about a month ago. Was that just for the month of January? Stats just for the month of January?
Just for the month of January. So Huntington Bank is a dedicated SBA lender, and they were they're still a Midwestern regional bank. They acquired TCF last year, which gave them some additional footprint in like Minnesota and Colorado, but it really kind of strengthened their Midwestern footprint. But they're an SBA bank. They decided about 2 years ago that they wanted to kind of take that kind of business and make it nationwide. One of the reasons kind of why I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, is they made an announcement about a year ago that they were looking to put SBA officers in specific markets, one of those being Nashville, Tennessee. Being from Tennessee originally, but living in Chicago at the time, it was such a great opportunity. There's so much growth going on. So it's a little bit of the best of both worlds because I can kind of introduce Huntington Bank to the state of Tennessee, but at the same time kind of develop nationwide partnerships to lend to anybody in the country. So it's been kind of an exciting kind of transition. And yeah, Huntington, I mean, their goal is to be the nation's top SBA lender by volume and by dollars. And so the only way to do so is to get in front of many business owners as possible and let them know how you can help. And so thanks to people like you, we can kind of spread the good word and let them know that Huntington Bank is a dedicated SBA lender. It's kind of I kind of say it's kind of their bread and butter product. We are an SBA bank. We do everything at Huntington, obviously from personal to investments. But I like to think that, our specialty is SBA lending.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I'm just looking at this, and this was January 2022. But you guys were number one in the nation with a number of SBA loans, 1,320, did twice the amount of Wells Fargo, and you guys did $198 million in SBA loans just in the month of January.
Yep, we're trying to. The goal is to do $1 billion. Is to hit $1 billion in SBA loans this year. So to hit that goal, you have to have a pretty aggressive. You have to have a pretty aggressive pipeline. And here's the thing: is Huntington didn't create the program. Obviously, the government sets the rules of what qualifies for an SBA loan. So finding quality applications, quality candidates is part of the deal. So it's not just handing out dollars to kind of anybody and everybody, but kind of finding well qualified people. But what I think people don't realize is that what it takes to be well qualified maybe isn't as tough, as difficult as kind of a lot of people think. A lot of people think it's cash heavy, right? I got to have lots of cash to get approved for a loan, especially if you're kind of in the more startup phase. But there's ways to access equity, and that could be from old 401ks. That can be from savings, but you maybe not need to use as much as you need. You can get gifts from family members that are willing to support. So there's a lot of different routes to kind of qualify for SBA lending. And so I think the main thing is just, again, kind of making sure that people are educated, which most people aren't until you have a conversation with them. So I know, Tariq, one of your big things is obviously having these types of conversations with people and just letting them know what different options are, whether it's through SBA or other means. Now's a great time to either start or expand a business because banks are lending. The SBA program, trust me, I get kind of recruiters in my inbox all the time asking if I'd be interested to talk because, banks are trying to grow their SBA program. It's a great program, and I think finally lenders are coming around to really wanting to support it. But Huntington's been doing it for a while, so we're not new to the block. We know the product really well, and again, it's kind of why it's great to be an SBA officer kind of with the bank that's behind me. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, this is when I work with clients. So, I help people buy businesses, buy franchises, and funding is like one of the scariest parts for people, obviously. But all right, so let's just take a step back for a second for the people that have no idea what an SBA loan is, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there. Because I hear people go, "Well, is the SBA going to give me money?" As if they think it's actually the SBA lending money. So can you just give like the simplified version of what an SBA loan even is? Yep. So an SBA loan is a government-backed loan, typically extended by a commercial bank institution, right? So a bank has to go through steps to be considered a preferred lender. So not all banks participate in SBA loan programs, but a bank like Huntington, which has kind of that preferred lender status, essentially what we've been designated as somebody who understands the program, who kind of knows the rules to the program. And so we underwrite all the deals, we approve the deals, we send everything to the SBA, obviously, to get reviewed just to make sure from an eligibility standpoint there's no issues. And then we service the loan. So the loan is, you have questions about the loans, you call Huntington Bank. And so why it's such a great deal for the banks is there's a government guarantee that supports the loan. So in a worst case scenario, a default, the bank is not on the hook for 100%. And why that's important is because a lot of the types of deals that these SBA loans are for tend to have a lack of collateral, right? If you're starting a franchise and you don't own the commercial real estate, you're just leasing, but maybe you need some money for some leasehold improvements or just some general working capital, payroll, marketing, advertising. Those things don't have much collateral value to them. So conventional lending tends not to be an option. But because of the government guarantee, it promotes lending in those type of scenarios. So that's kind of what it is. So you're not applying directly through the SBA. The banks are the ones that implement the program.
Yeah, got it. So in simple terms, the bank's lending you the money, and then the SBA is saying, hey, basically, if that person defaults and doesn't pay back the loan, then the SBA will cover and guarantee a certain percentage and get the lender, like Huntington, their money back, right?
Correct. Yep. And as of right now, it's 75% of a loan and 50% of a line of credit. So that's the government guarantee percentage of a loan in the line.
Got it. Awesome. All right. So now that we've kind of clarified what an SBA loan is, let's talk about who an SBA loan is for, who an SBA loan is not for. Let's cover who's not, who it's not, who is an SBA loan not for?
So yeah, a lot of the requests that I get that I unfortunately have to turn down is kind of anybody that's in kind of the investment real estate space, right? So anybody that's looking to buy a commercial space, but maybe they're not going to be the tenant. They're looking to lease it out. Or somebody that's looking to buy, a common one is like an Airbnb. Do you finance Airbnb properties? That's considered residential. And obviously it's not considered owner occupied in terms of a business operating in the space. So those are typically ones that we can't do through the SBA program. Also, anything over $5 million with the SBA 7A, any request over $5 million it goes above the cap. So we can't lend over that dollar amount. So that's kind of, I would say, the most common requests that I get that we cannot do. Anything kind of investment related.
Anything investment related. Got it. So, and then who is like a good candidate for an SBA loan?
So the beautiful thing about the loan, it kind of hits all the stages of a company's growth, right? So you can go everything from startup to expansion to a partner buyout to a business acquisition. So everything from starting the business to eventually, if you want to sell the business, whoever's looking to buy, we can finance for. So, it really can be meant for anybody. And the great thing about it is the different uses of an SBA loan. So we talked about expansion. So that could be, you said you help a lot with franchise. So that's a very common, lending request. So when it comes to franchise, we can help, like I said before, with leasehold improvements. We can help with equipment. We can help with general working capital. We can help with payroll. Kind of think about all the things that kind of hit those first 6 months worth of expenses to get the business up and running. And then we can also supplement kind of an SBA loan with a line of credit. So some kind of general working capital. We kind of say that's for after the first 6 months, kind of have some additional capital that you can have access to for any short-term needs. Because, the one thing you don't want to do is run out of capital, right? Probably the most common reason business fails, they just run out of money. And, the great thing about an SBA loan is that if done correctly, it should give you well capitalized to give you that ramp up. You want to hit those first 2 years, get out of those growing pains, be able to set up kind of a customer base wherever you're at. And hopefully that leads to success. And so we don't want that to be the issue. We want you to get through those first 2 years well capitalized and be successful as possible, and hopefully come back and want to expand. And we can help out with that as well. So I would say that's kind of one of the main reasons for it.
I know in the beginning of our conversation, but I think before we kind of hit record, you were talking about what channel you serve in the SBA space. Can you talk about that, what that is, and who you work with in the SBA space?
So let's take commercial real estate, for example. One of the benefits of an SBA loan, let's say you're a business that's currently leasing and you want to buy a commercial space. We can finance 100% of that purchase. And on top of that, we can actually, if you need to do some building improvements, maybe you need to buy some new equipment, we can kind of package that all in together. Finance up to 100% of all that We stretch that out over 25 years. And we only do a 3-year prepayment penalty. So again, kind of the idea, keep your cash in your bank, right? For any unexpected hurdles.
So they don't
you
have
might
to
run
put
into.
any money down?
Potentially, if the business is strong enough from a cash flow perspective, we can finance 100%. It's amazing the things you can do for a well-qualified buyer through the SBA loan. Now, they may elect to put some money down, and that's perfectly fine, but they don't have to. And we can finance all that. With a business acquisition, for example, we typically look for around 10% equity injection of whatever the purchase price is. You can actually do as little as 5% if the seller's willing to participate in a seller's note. 5% of your own cash, 5% of a seller's note, and we could typically, and that'll kind of account for the 10% that we typically like to see.
And you guys, sorry to interrupt you, you guys actually funded one of my, this was before you and I met, but one of my clients, Cole, I did a podcast episode with him. He bought a resale college hunks hauling junk, and that situation played out where he put 5% down. The seller gave him, I think, actually 5 or 10% seller financing, and they were able to make it happen with that. So
great program, because for the owner, think about this: instead of getting a lump sum of cash, they're kind of delaying that income, right? So from a tax liability, and I'm not a tax professional, so don't take my word for it, but you think about it, that's delayed income that they can have, and and they can get those in monthly payments over a specific period of time. So it's actually a great program, and the seller remains invested. One of the reasons why we like the seller's note is because if you have any issues, especially that first year or so, if you have any issues with the business, or you have questions, and you call that previous owner, if they still have a vested interest, they'll typically pick up the phone, and they have an interest to help you out as well, right? If it's just a clean transaction and they got their money, they might be on the beach somewhere. They might look at that incoming call and hang. They might not pick it up. So we do like seller participation, not requirement, but it's something to always consider when going through a business acquisition.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. So, and just to be clear, business acquisition is when you're buying a resale business, basically, when you're buying an existing business, and you typically only have to put, like you said, about 10% down, which is amazing. So for those who are watching, think about this, imagine that you could buy a business that's selling for $500,000. And let's say if that business is selling for a 3 times multiple of its profits, let's say that business is making 150, 160 grand a year in profits. You could quit your job, buy a business tomorrow with just putting 50 grand down. If you can get approved through SBA, you put 50 grand down, finance the remaining 450 via SBA. You've got yourself free from your job. You got a business that's profiting, and that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. And Tariq, let me even give you a little bit, sweeten the deal even more. We can give you some money back in working capital. So you're thinking about you're putting your 10% equity injection. Maybe we give you 5% at closing cash back for working capital. I mean, it can happen. Again, as long as the business can support the debt, we can get pretty creative. So there's ways to, if cash is a concern, putting money down, there's ways that, again, we can make sure you're well capitalized going into starting a business. We want you to be successful, and and we want you to have the means to do it. So we can look at putting some working capital right away at closing, and then obviously we're always going to look to supplement with a line of credit. So it's a great program. It's a great deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's talk about another example of someone buying a franchise, right? A brand new franchise, and they're trying to figure out what their funding options are. What are the typical standard guidelines if someone's wanting to buy a new franchise under SBA?
Yeah, so franchise startup, we're looking around 20% equity injection, and that's total project cost. So what's total project cost? Obviously, you have the franchise fee, any equipment that you need to buy, leasehold improvements, the general working capital bucket, which that's, anything that you can, it goes back kind of anything in that first 6-month period. Because what we like to do is we like to structure kind of a draw in that loan. So you think about when you close on the loan, let's say the loan is for $400,000, you have 6 months to draw that loan down. So it's almost like a draw. It's essentially a draw to term note. So for 6 months, you're just requesting funds based on a general contracts request, buying equipment, payroll, any of the reasons that are eligible for SBA. You're only paying interest only on the money borrowed over the first 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, that loan, essentially whatever that remaining balance is, which could be the entire amount, or if you come under budget, could be a lower loan amount, that terms out over the remaining, it's a 10-year period, it's a 10-year term in total, so 6-month draw, and then 9.5-year P&I principal and interest payment. So for franchise startups, that's what we're looking for. In terms of where that money is typically coming from, obviously, you have the obvious, which is just cash or liquidating some, investments. A rollover for business startup or a ROBS account is extremely popular. So for those that have an old 401k from an old employer, you can tap into that money and take it out where it's tax friendly, where you're not getting dinged the early withdrawal period. So that's another great option. And then, of course, you can have partners in the business. Anybody that's 20% owner or greater has to be a guarantor for an SBA loan. So if you have a partner that wants to be involved, but maybe just wants to be an equity partner, or just kind of give some cash to the deal, but doesn't want to be a guarantor, if they have less than 20%, they can kind of pitch in some money, but not have to be a guarantor. And then, of course, you can always get gifts, right? So it's sometimes common for a parent or a family member to give you a gift. We just need basically a letter saying that there's no repayment on that gift, and that can be considered equity injection. So a lot of different ways to come up with the cash to kind of satisfy that 20% equity injection requirement.
Awesome, man. So if someone wants to reach out to you and get some advice and help on SBA loans, where can they find you? How can they get in touch?
So a few different ways. Obviously, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Just you can search my name, and then obviously my email address. If anybody out there has pen and paper handy, it's just my first and last name. So glen.gyro, and that's at huntington.com. And then cell phone as well. I'm always open for a conversation. So 704-609-3191. So by any of the means I mentioned, you can get a hold of me.
Yeah, and we'll put the links in like the description and everything like that, so people can just grab it out of there, the email or your cell or so on and so forth, and reach out. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for the time. Thanks for dropping the bombs of nuggets about SBA loans and how people can get their business funded.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too boring. That was my one rule was like, do not bore people with SBA talk. But I appreciate you, Tariq. The work that you do is awesome, and I thank you for having me join you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.